Let me start with a simple observation. You can be physically present in a room and not actually be felt. You can also be very felt without bringing any stability to the space. If you've been following along with this mini series on the Five Coherences, today is the peak coherence, field coherence breakdown. So when you can be present in a room and not felt, or very felt but not stabilizing, that difference isn't confidence. It's not personality or charisma. It is field coherence. And so before we go further in this video today, the way that you interact and work with the field around you will be shaped by your nervous system and embodiment pattern. And we call these patterns the skins. There are 4 primary ways that the nervous system organizes under pressure. Some bodies resist and brace, that's the warrior. Some yield and adapt, that's the shapeshifter. Some narrow and orient, that's the sage. And some widen and sense, that's the asset. And these are not personalities, they are somatic response strategies, and they shape how you handle conflict, leadership, visibility, intimacy, decisions, the moments that actually matter. So knowing your skin will not give you another limiting label. It will liberate you because it's going to reveal how your system responds to pressure, environment, and where your strengths and your blind spots tend to live. So pause the video, go down to the description, and take our 2-minute Somatic Skins Quiz. You'll receive your initial description and then come back. Everything I'm going to share on field coherence will make a lot more sense. Field coherence is how a nervous system organizes itself in relation to the environment. So think groups, conversations, rooms, social dynamics. It's what others register when you enter a space. Before you speak, before you act, before you do anything intentional. When field coherence breaks, it usually shows up in one of 2 ways: invisibility or chaotic influence. So let's start with invisibility. Invisibility isn't introversion. It isn't shyness or humility. It's a pattern where the person is present, but they're difficult to locate. They shrink themselves out of habit, so their edges soften, their movements might get smaller, their expression mutes, their breath minimizes, and the voice loses resonance. The eyes scan the room instead of landing. And nothing overtly is wrong, and that's what makes it hard to spot this pattern. But the system isn't organized enough to project stability with power into the environment, so it doesn't leave an imprint. From the inside, invisibility often sounds like, I don't want to take up space, I don't want to be disruptive, who am I to share my thoughts? But beneath that language is usually a long history of field sensitivity, learning often early that being less detectable felt safer, whether for themselves or others. This isn't a confidence issue, and it's not a communication problem. It is a nervous system that learned to reduce its signal to stay regulated. And here's the important thing. Field coherence cannot be forced. You can't just decide to be bigger and more present and really make it stick. Presence emerges when the lower coherences are aligned in real time, and you can check out in this same playlist some of those earlier videos on the lower coherences. That's why training in visibility does not start with expression. It starts with structure, a firm stance that actually transmits force into the ground, breath that's resonant enough to support the voice, eye contact that can land without collapsing, and practices that require being seen without shrinking while staying organized. When structure, breath, attention, and identity line up, presence happens on its own. The person doesn't perform visibility, they simply become locatable. Now, let's look at the other side, chaotic influence. This is presence without coherence. So the person is felt immediately, but not in a way that stabilizes the room. Their energy spills outward without organization. Movements are large but imprecise, and their voice carries but without grounding. Their relational field oscillates. They dominate and then withdraw and then surge again. And so others experience this as intense or unpredictable or exciting or overstimulating. Chaotic influence isn't arrogance, it isn't ego, and it isn't just confidence gone awry. It's overwhelm expressed outward. The system can't contain its own voltage, so the excess leaks into behavior. Expression outruns structure. Impact turns into noise. People in this pattern often identify as big energy or passionate or expressive, but those labels miss the point. Expression without organization doesn't create presence, it destabilizes it. And the solution isn't to shrink. Chaotic influence doesn't resolve by getting quieter or smaller, it resolves through organization. Structure that can contain charge. Breath that grounds the voice. Pacing that slows expression enough for precision to return. Clear identity that allows the person to stay consistent instead of oscillating. When that happens, intensity becomes influence instead of disruption. So here's the through line to hold. Invisibility and chaotic influence are not opposites. They're both signs that the system can't yet regulate itself through the environment. So one disappears to stay safe, and the other overwhelms to stay regulated. Field coherence emerges when structure, energy, attention, and identity are integrated well enough that the system can meet the world without distortion. And when that happens, presence stops being something that you try to be or project. It becomes something others feel reliably the moment you enter the room. And that's the difference that field coherence can make. So that's what I have for you in this mini series on the 5 coherences. If you, like us, totally love this stuff and you want to go deeper with us, there are 2 ways to do so. You can check out our core curriculum in our books, The Somatic Skins and Becoming the Grand Formidable. I will link them both below. Or better yet, you can train with us directly by applying for a season of the Prestige and experience the power of this work for yourself. So depending on when you're watching this, we are rolling out the new season soon, within weeks. So now is the time for us to connect. If you have loved this series on the coherences, let us know and let's continue this conversation in the comments. Until next time.